Want to talk?
Oh, very good. Oh, it's Nolan, hi, ho. Hi, guys. Mark. Good, you do great. Thank you. You look hot.
Matt, can you hear us?
Yeah, should have.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, mine isn't showing.
But I can't hear you anyways, so
Okay,
you're fine.
good enough. That's what I wanted. It just made it a little different.
We had a heck of a time last night with microphones and things.
Oh, yeah.
at the
You know, that wasn't
EIS.
even,
Turns out it was
it was Darcy's.
Darcy.
It was Darcy's?
He had,
Yeah.
he had his phone and iPhone and like iPad together.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
So he was recording himself
Yeah.
okay.
and then it was playing back.
Playing back, okay.
So when I started, we had the same issue.
It was just
One of the
one of the
mics
microphones up in the top
Yep.
were on.
Sort of like looping or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on, I was like,
That's just
I
like-
did a separate Zoom, I literally did a separate Zoom meeting. So I went outside with my laptop and I was talking and the IT guy's like, all clear. So I was like, wait a minute, what changed? So.
Technology is great until it doesn't work and then.
Remember all the whole promises of technology and the internet and all that stuff. They always come with other things.
Most of these, yeah, it's the unknowns, some things, unintended consequences that, yeah.
Unanticipated consequences, yeah. Gosh, just the software. The new permit system.
How's that?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Rudd, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Quorum. One more.
Give me one more.
Jim's coming.
Jim said he said he was coming, so he's probably gonna come in minutes.
Nick?
Nick is not.
Nick's not coming.
Nick and Scott,
Is Scott coming?
No.
No. Jim is coming?
yes.
And what about,
Sunita said that she was zooming in. Rudd is zooming, and then I didn't hear anything from Jefferson.
Who was, I don't know the name. Peter Frazier. Who's he representing?
or something, you know, just property on House Hotel Leo.
Trying to get money for the next round of jobs gone.
Internet
Coming off
stuff,
a real big one.
stuff.
Okay.
Really get the next
Okay.
round
Going
investment.
in that. I think it's going good.
Northwest.
We were trying to get.
So we are just waiting for a quorum for those who are zooming in.
You know, some other properties as well.
Got one permit in the
We just
city.
need one more
And we're pretty quick to
commissioner.
get it back. We don't have the permit yet, but they've already reviewed it.
Eileen, I can't hear you anymore.
Yes, I muted the room.
I knew.
Conversation.
Did Roger come out?
Yeah, yes, she was.
Eileen, I can't hear you.
Yes, Red, I muted the room since there's side conversations. We are currently waiting for the other commissioners to come in to start, because
Okay.
otherwise we are short a quorum.
Okay.
For Personia, how long do we wait here? Until the cobwebs form.
We can.
Well, we know we believe they're coming, right?
Yes.
So.
Commissioner Hanson, said that he was either gonna be in person or online. But he said he is arriving. Let's see. And then Commissioner Eisenberg, said that she was gonna come in via Zoom. Just waiting.
You know. We'll have somebody work on, that's,
Yeah, right.
we have that money. We have money, right, we had everybody at 20 on one of our jobs.
Uh-huh.
And we, for Seth, doing a really, we have a roof on one of our houses where you go up. Kelly before the skylight. But the roof is recessed down.
Mm.
The city where it's at has a 35 forest foot height limit, and so.
Not very well, I've been a couple of times, and the guy that we say, what movie the cell phone number,
Jack, so we've got this jack that's
I
like
gotta meet with them.
35 feet off the town. And so they were putting TPO on it, and the first thing we do is we give them money. I think we gave each of them a 50 or something like that, and 2 days after they were done, they said, they showed up, and they said, we were thinking there was some little piece we should have done, and we came back to do that. And it's like, for you, they want to do the job, for me, we just wanted to go, man, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
So we always.
And then he went over
Huh.
to city finance.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Department, 1%.
Yeah.
It was pretty good, but they came back 2 days later. Yeah, we're out
There's
there.
two deputies, I think he's one of them.
Yeah, we should have done this little piece different, so we're here, we'll do it.
Well, that's good, because if they didn't, you probably would end up with a leak or something.
Something, anyway.
Yeah.
Great job.
I've had those
Yeah.
TPO roofs, I had one they didn't. They didn't get their seam done right, and it was leaking.
Process. There's a blockage or.
But yeah, so then
someone's
they
on
had to.
vacation.
Oh,
they have
he's here.
Somebody else ready to fill into that role to keep the
Sorry, I'm
process
late.
going and stuff.
I jumped in.
Choose between being here or late or a long time.
That's a new problem, so it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was.
All right.
Well, staff meetings too.
We have a quorum.
Oh, God.
Excellent.
If I would have stayed at home, you've been off the hook.
All right, we're gonna get started. Good evening. The May 22nd, 2025 Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting is called to order. I'll call the roll. Calvin Barton, that's me. Fred Brown,
Yeah.
Daniel Dunn.
Here.
Nita Eisenberg. Nicholas Greig will not be here. Jim Hanson,
Here.
Julie Jefferson. Julie Jefferson. Dominic Masseri.
Here.
And Scott Van Dalen will not be here. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, right.
It is time for department update, and planning director Mark Personius, would you give us the department update?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Commissioners. Let's see, the electrical transmission line code amendments. We will brief council, next Tuesday on, at their May 27th meeting, committee of the, Planning and Development Committee. And then they'll introduce, Tuesday night, and there'll be a public hearing on June 10th. Council is continuing their deliberations on the countywide planning policies next Tuesday, as well. During committee of the whole, they're addressing proposed changes from council members Galloway and Donovan, the Surface Mining Advisory Committee, and the Nooksack Tribe. So Matt's been working with the cities to get their comments back on those proposed amendments, and so they'll have that discussion on Tuesday. We've had some preliminary discussions with the council and council staff about holding some joint meetings over the summer and the fall with the planning commission and the council. And obviously there's lots of logistical challenges with all of that. But at the last council meeting, Chair Galloway, I think, asked council staff to poll the council members individually to see if they had a preference for how they'd like to go about doing that. What we sort of have suggested is some potential joint meetings, maybe in August and maybe in October, to kind of batch up where you guys are at, and so they can kind of have a joint conversation on that. What we're doing in the meantime is to keep the council in the loop on the work you guys are doing. Is when we send you a packet with an element in it for your next meeting and hearing and discussion, we'll copy the council with that same packet. So they'll all be able to see the proposed changes for every element as they come through, and start the public review process. And so then we're proposing is that at the following council meeting, we would put a regular item on their committee of the whole agenda that would be whatever that particular element was that you guys are now deliberating. And it's just an FYI, staff would do a high level overview for council, and here it is. And if they have any comments, any concerns, you know, priorities or whatever, they can let us know. And staff can bring that back to you guys at your next meeting, or we could just send you a link to the video of that committee of the whole meeting where they have that discussion. And so you guys at your leisure can just see what thoughts council had on any particular issue. So that's kind of at the minimum to keep the council wants to kind of stay in the loop and just hear what's going on, what you guys are talking about and stuff. So the other thing, I've asked Eileen to poll the commissioners, you guys, to determine your best availabilities to meet over the summer and the fall for potential joint meetings with the council, but also availability for any potential daytime meetings, just so you have more time to digest and deliberate over some of the elements that are going to be coming to you pretty fast here over the next 3 to 4 months. So she'll do that. I think we've just talked a little bit about it. What might be good is she might just ask you, are there any particular dates, weeks that you're on vacation, you can't meet, you know, primarily probably because of summer vacations or jobs. And then secondarily, are there particular days or times of the day that you could be more available to meet? And then we'll sort of crunch those two sets of data and see if we come up with some more likely days and times that over the summer that might work for potential daytime meeting. And it'd be voluntary for you guys, you know, if you wanted to do that. And then those they'd be public meetings, but there wouldn't be any hearings or anything like that. We would design those as work sessions for you guys to make motions and propose changes to things or accept things, but not, you know, you're not voting to approve the total elements or anything at that point. That would come later at the public hearing stage. So anyway, that's just an FYI. Yeah.
Commissioner Brown has a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, Mark, I was just wondering if Eileen could do that via SurveyMonkey or something similar. It's a much more efficient way to do it.
Yeah, I think either, is it Doodle?
Hmm?
Yeah,
Doodle poll, SurveyMonkey, one of those things.
Yeah. So anyway, just to let you know, you'll be getting some outreach from Eileen on that subject. We had a public hearing on the comp plan DEIS last night down at council chambers. It was described by one bard as the hottest ticket in town.
Does was.
And what did we have? I think we had 12 people, I think. Eileen, yeah.
Yeah, I talked to one of them.
Yes, there's 20 attendees and 10 people in the chambers.
In chambers, yeah. Oh, and then finally, I wanted to just give you a heads up. We've sort of mapped out tentatively your schedule over the summer and fall with the elements as we're getting through them and getting them ready. Tonight is obviously chapter 1, and then we've got your June 12th meeting. We are plugging in presenting the transportation chapter update, and we'll have representatives from the Department of Public Works and the transportation consultant, Transpo, will be here to make that presentation and to answer questions you guys might have on that. We're looking at June 26th for Lauren to come back, Lauren Clemens from Public Works to come back and present on the climate element itself. You guys kind of got the high overview of the background of it last meeting, but this would be the element itself. And then we're looking at July 10th, probably carryover with climate discussion if needed, and we would have a presentation on proposed changes to chapter 9, which is the recreation element. And we'll have representatives from the Parks and Recreation Department here as well to talk about that and their proposed changes. And then July 24th, chapter 4, capital facilities. Matt's plugging in the land capacity analysis methodology as well for that meeting. And then we get into August, we're looking at the utilities chapter and the economic development chapter as well. So that's at least the next 3 months of stuff that we've got plugged in for. And that's assuming one meeting each on those. So, yeah.
Could we get that emailed out to us? I know it's still tentative, but
I can, yeah.
just so that we have an idea.
Commissioner Hanson, go ahead.
Is there any way we could get these chapters 2 weeks ahead of time, ahead of our discussion, rather than just a week?
We can try.
Okay.
We can try. Yeah, there's a lot on our plates right now, but we'll do our best.
As a former council member, I have no sympathy for you.
You were getting paid.
Not much.
Wow.
All right, that is all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Alright. Can I ask a question about this overall process? I guess I'm concerned about a lack of consultation with the Lummi Nation other than pro forma. And I'm concerned that if we go forward with approving things and they haven't been engaged, that they will have grounds to challenge. And between them and some other nonprofit, we want to make sure that what we produce is bulletproof as far as challenges. So I'm concerned that the consultants didn't do a very proactive outreach, which would probably mean going out there and talking to relatives of council members, et cetera, and basically tracking down someone with authority to speak to them rather than just sending letters or emails.
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Hanson, for the comment. We have followed, Matt, was it HB, was it 1717? Right, that was
Yeah.
the bill change that we had to reach out to the tribes, or they could voluntarily propose to engage during the GMA comp plan updates, because they're not subject to GMA. So this was kind of that first bill that tied that connection together. So we did that, early 24, I think. We sent letters to both tribal chairs asking for that engagement. We did receive response from the Nooksack tribe, and we actually engaged with them on we have a draft MOA, memorandum of agreement about that we're, they sent a draft to us. We had some suggested changes and sent it back and haven't heard back from them yet. But so that process engaged. We never heard formally from the Lummi Nation on that, but we have reached out and engaged with the Lummis specifically on the countywide planning policies. And specifically, they've engaged with us on their cultural resources staff have engaged with us on the comp plan specifically. So there is dialogue going on, there is engagement going on. And I know Matt sent a formal request again to the Lummi Nation chair on the land use element in particular for comments and stuff. So and told them there's a number of ways of opportunities for them to engage with us, and so.
Good. That's good. And it also occurred to me, since they have economic development and population growth within the reservation and with external of the reservation, that integrating them into our overall planning effort would be very valuable.
Yeah.
Maybe Matt could go over just briefly the engagement summary that you sent.
Oh, Matt?
Yes.
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, I was thinking maybe tonight during your presentation, if you don't mind, you could go over the engagement summary that you sent. There's a question about how we've been engaging with different people and things like that. I thought there was some really good sort of reporting in there about how we've reached out to talk to different communities.
Yeah, let me just bring it up here. Share my screen. Oops.
That's what I was reading.
Okay. Oops. Okay, can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got a consultant, SCJ Alliance. They've done some outreach. Kind of one of the first things they did is stakeholder interviews, and reached out to a number of organizations, committees, Nooksack Tribe. I think they also reached out to the Lummi Nation. They were not able to arrange an interview. But they interviewed all those folks and focused on key topics, growth and development and climate. And these are all summaries of, comments that they got. but there's a variety of topics and issues that are in the report. Affordable housing, water, things like that. They also went out into the community and, to Blaine, Linden, Kendall, Ferndale, Lemmy Reservation, Bellingham, that are shown on the screen here. They had what they called pop-ups, just a little stand, or they tried to hit venues that were already having an event where people were already there. Like the Linden's Farmer Market. There's a ton of people up there. They did their pop-up. If people were interested, they could come over. They did like penny polls and things like that, where you give people so many pennies and they stick it in the issues that are important to them. So those, and here's some photos from some of those events. Those events are summarized here. Here's the mini poll. You might have to kind of enlarge that a little bit to see. That's what they had given out, and people would answer what end of the spectrum they're on, type thing. And they could put also written comments or verbal comments. And yeah, this is the penny poll. So you'd have, if climate was an important issue, you put your pennies in there, or housing, transportation, whichever is most important to you is a priority. And then we also have a whole bunch of public comments that are posted on the website. So we post every public comment that we get, and you can access that via the county website. They also did a summary, or excuse me, a survey online. And they've got over 300 complete. Some people didn't answer all the questions, but they answered, some of the questions here. And they have a summary of key takeaways about, housing seemed to be an important issue that was on a lot of people's minds. They ask about transportation, where you might want to see improvements, or what areas are unsafe, that type of thing. Climate, recreational facilities. There's quite a few, park questions in the survey. Yeah, and this is like from the survey: do you live here? Do you shop here? Do you work here? That type of thing. Where are you from, and what's your relationship with Whatcom County? Zip code, kind of give an idea where people are. And then there was a variety of questions. Actually, this is demographics here. Language spoken at home, annual income. Okay, so that's all the background stuff. But then we also have a vision statement in the comprehensive plan. And people were asked, do you strongly agree, agree, strongly disagree, and so forth. So you can kind of see if you're red and blue are, 50% or over, like rural areas, people wanted or agreed with this part of the vision statement. Rural areas have less traffic, and congestion and so forth. Looks like ag is encouraged, got over 50%, that type of thing. And then the county council, you may recall, county council passed a resolution in 2022 with some of their priorities. And so folks were asked, this is a council priority. Do you support that? Is that a priority for you? And, ag was the top one, and economic security, affordable housing, and then you kind of go down to the other end of the spectrum. So, and then there was topics like housing. What are some issues you see? So you can see, financial issues in purchasing a house, various things, limited homes for sale, that type of thing. What barriers there are, what people see who responded. Again, top priorities for housing. So just a variety of questions asked in a variety of ways, revolving around the vision statement, key issues, council priorities, that type of thing. So yeah, we sent that out so you can take a look at the details. And
Yeah, we had never done that in depth of a sort of public outreach before. So this was very interesting to get out there, talk to folks.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hampton.
And even though those people weren't necessarily privy to the Growth Management Act, the responses seem to mirror the types of values that are embedded in the GMA.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of, GMA can get kind of where, a lot of people don't have detailed knowledge of it. So they were just asking, what is your priority as a member of the public, as a citizen, as a homeowner, as a renter, as a person who works or lives in Whatcom County. So I think you're right. You didn't have to have a specific knowledge of the GMA to participate. So.
But man, it looks like dog parks were more popular than pickleball courts.
What?
Uh-oh, that's must be something going on there. Yeah.
That's because of COVID.
Commissioner Brown, go ahead.
I was looking for the document online, but I found it, so questions answered.
Okay. Yeah, and when we're preparing the survey, like the Parks Department, the consultant kind of prepared a draft, and the Parks Department would weigh in, and Public Works would weigh in on the road questions, and PDS did. So we tried to hone some of the questions that in a way that's more focused on Whatcom County, more specific in some cases. So yeah, but you can see like this is climate, what concerns you, wildfire. Flood management was a big one. We had the big, 2021 floods, and so you can kind of see what was on people's minds and what's important to them.
Well, Matt, why don't we go ahead and move along, and thank you
Okay.
for doing that. And so right now it's time, open session for public comment. Eileen?
A quick one, sorry, a quick question.
Sure.
The last couple of all comments we had, like somebody comment and then commissioners ask questions about the comment, or I don't know, the time has been kind of plus or minus. Do you want to keep with that format where somebody will make a comment and then kind of we all talk about it back and forth, ask some questions? Or do you like the more traditional format of like, they make a comment and then that's it, and then the next person makes a comment?
Well, the option is always when somebody comments to be able to ask them a question or so on. I think that's the appropriate time.
Okay, great.
So,
And is there kind of like a time limit, or like, I know we're supposed to have kind of 3 minutes, but I guess if somebody makes a comment, then I ask them a question, and they're at the 3 minutes, like, is it kind of time sort of like?
and that would be different than their 3-minute time.
Okay, sure.
Them answering a question for the commissioners. All right.
Mhm.
So, Eileen, would you take over, please?
Yes. So we have no public members of the public in the room, so we will go to the attendees online. This is public comment, and since we do have a public hearing tonight, please do not talk on that topic, which is chapter 1 of the comp plan update, introduction, and growth projections. But you can talk on any other subject except for that. You will be given 3 minutes to speak, and the timer will be on the screen. I see Ander Russell. Do you wish to speak at this time?
Yes, I do. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be speaking on the comp plan, but not on chapter 1, just generally on public participation. Just want to say how much Andrew Russell here, Bellingham, Washington, with Resources, local nonprofit. We've been pretty engaged on the comp plan so far. We actually are wrapping up a grant with the Department of Commerce to work on public engagement for the comp plan. The funding for that grant was to continue that grant was not included in the state budget. And so I want to just talk a little bit about public participation and our thoughts on that. And I completely understand that staff is very strapped for time and capacity right now. As a leader of a small nonprofit, in the times we find ourselves in, I am in the same boat with my staff, thus giving a public comment tonight because we have 3 other meetings happening at this time. But so I really, we make these comments with the utmost awareness and respect for the amount of time that staff is already putting in. But we're concerned that high quality, accessible access, public participation that is kind of at this point getting pushed aside for speed of cranking out these chapters. And as Commissioner Hanson mentioned, 1 week is not enough time for a also staff strapped, capacity strapped nonprofit and other community organizations in town, 1 week is not enough to engage the public, to get to read through the chapters, to coordinate with other folks in the public, to engage the public, to get them to understand and know what's going on. That is not enough time. And GMA guidance has a lot of strategies and examples for jurisdictions to use to get high quality inputs, particularly from communities that are historically excluded from the planning spaces. And I think you did some of that in last year when you did that, the public engagement summary work that Matt just went over. But that was a year ago, and now the chapters are coming out, and this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. Whatcom County created a public participation plan. It was a good plan when it came out. There's been significant delays. It's not been updated. It's good to hear that there's a schedule for when the chapters will come to the commission, and some work being done. So we encourage you to update that public participation plan with the current timelines. And yeah, a bare minimum is enough notice for the element release timelines for, to enable community groups and the public and community members to have adequate time to review these drafts. So, that's just our big call. We're struggling and trying to get folks engaged, but it's hard to do that on these short timelines.
Thank you very much.
Darcy Jones, would you like to provide public comment at this time?
Thank you. This is Darcy Jones. I'm reserving my time to comment on the agenda item, if that's okay. Is that good?
Yes, that's okay.
I'll make sure, hopefully I won't have any audio problems tonight. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you.
Looks like no other panelists. Okay, let's move on to commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Okay, approval of minutes for the May 8th meeting. Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Brown, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections? Okay, seeing no additions or corrections, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dunn,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes,
Bossari,
Abstain.
Brown,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Just point of order. Did we get enough votes to pass that, or did we have a?
So because this is not passing any code.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we do have a quorum, so it's fine, yeah, sorry.
So it is the majority of the room.
Yeah, no, I withdraw my comment.
And I have a question for Director Personius. I was hearing public hearing tonight, but is that accurate? Because it's not in here on our agenda.
Oh. Yes, it was. Eileen, right?
What
It
do you
was
mean?
legally posted. and
It is
noticed.
legally posted.
If it's legally posted, we're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify for that.
Yeah, it doesn't use the words public hearing.
Oh, I do see that. Yes, but it was, all other
Yeah. So
advertisements have been corrected.
our meeting topic tonight is 2025 comprehensive plan update. And Matt, Ahmed, senior planner, would you go ahead?
Sure, thank you. So yeah, for the record, my name is Matt Ahmed with Planning and Development. So the last Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan update was completed in 2016, and the Growth Management Act, or GMA, requires Whatcom County to review and revise its comp plan and development regulations in 2025, which may actually kind of run over into 2026. The County Planning Department will bring individual chapters to the Planning Commission to conduct public hearings and hold work sessions to develop preliminary recommendations. So then after review of each individual chapter, the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing and make final recommendations to the County Council on the whole comprehensive plan. So it'll be one hearing on the whole thing. So tonight, the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing and work session on Chapter 1, which is Introduction and Growth Projections. And Chapter 1 generally includes background information, including GMA goals, land use history, and current land use. And then there's a goal and related policies on government activities, regulations, and policies. And then there is historical and projected future population and employment. So proposed changes to Chapter 1 include the GMA goals. So we are updating those goals as they are repeated in Chapter 1 to reflect changes made by the state legislature in recent years. So those are verbatim from the state law. One of those was House Bill 1220, which was passed in the 2021 legislative session. And that places more emphasis on planning for and accommodating housing that's affordable to all economic segments of the community. And that will be addressed in Chapter 3, which is housing. And then we updated the language relating to House Bill 1181, which was passed in the 2023 legislative session. And that requires that comp plans must address climate change and resiliency. And that's what Lauren had talked to you about a couple weeks ago. And this will be addressed primarily in a new Chapter 12, but also in other chapters of the comp plan. And then also Chapter 1 changes the population projections and historical population data. And also OFM has updated their population projections at the state level for each county. We would note that the population growth projections in Chapter 1 reflect the preliminary numbers approved by the County Council on March 11th, 2025 in Resolution 2025-011. And then Chapter 1 also includes employment, including updating the historical employment and inserting employment growth projections for the new planning period, the 2023 to 2045 period, for the urban growth areas, areas outside UGAs, and a countywide total. So there's kind of a parallel there for population and employment. And again, we would note that those employment growth projections in Chapter 1 also reflect County Council Resolution 2025-011, which were preliminary projections. And then there's miscellaneous, modifications relating to updating or correcting or improving language. So this evening, we are looking for preliminary Planning Commission recommendations on Chapter 1, and then you would revisit those when you hold your final hearing at the end of the process. So if you have any questions, we try to address those.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, let's say we approve the population and growth and job growth preliminary estimates in Chapter 1, and then we go all the way to the end of having the full document, and it turns out that it was erroneous to adopt those population projections, and a lot of the rest of the chapters are based on that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense that we wouldn't want to iron this out first.
Yeah, I mean, you can iron it out. I guess we're just saying that, we're trying to get a good sense and a recommendation from Planning Commission, but there will be a hearing on the whole comp plan. So you can look at the whole thing at the end of the process. So yeah, I think the cities would appreciate your approach too, because they don't, want necessarily the projections to change at the end. But there is the practical reality that you'll have a public hearing overall on the whole comp plan, so you can see how it all fits together. And
Go ahead.
Matt, could you remind us of the history of the decisions on the population numbers? So I know we had some work sessions and a public hearing in Planning Commission. I know went to the cities. Just kind of walk us through that process and kind of where we're at now.
Sure. So the Office of Financial Management issues population projections for each county every 5 years. So they did it in 2017, they did it again in 2022, and they have a high, medium, and low. Under state law, the medium or middle projection is their most likely projection, but counties and cities are allowed to choose from within the range of high to low projections. So then we hired a consultant, the county and cities, and they did a technical report, what we call kind of this whole population and employment growth projections were kind of split into two phases. Phase one is a technical review, kind of the consultant. And then phase two is what we call the policy phase, when, planning commission weighs in and considers public comment and makes recommendations, and the council does the same thing, considering public and city proposals, things like that. So that was May 2024. The consultant issued their technical report, and they distributed the OFM middle, and then they took a narrower band than the state took for high and low projections, thinking, maybe a more realistic band, because the state projections have a wide difference between high and low. And they distributed those to urban growth areas, kind of based upon historical growth. And kind of an example of how that can be difficult is like Columbia Valley jobs were extremely low for the future because they've been extremely low in the past. And so, like for Columbia Valley, there's a high, you might say high or optimistic projection. But part of that is, also providing land supply for these jobs. There's been comments in the past that there's no land supply for jobs, therefore, there are no jobs, and there's multiple factors for that. But anyway, there's kind of a policy component. It's just not all looking at past trends. Sometimes planning wants to look for changes in the future. So anyway, the county went to county council last, I think it was October, and we, had kind of some briefings on the county UGAs for Birch Bay, Cherry Point, Columbia Valley. And they gave a little bit of guidance just to maybe lower the rural projection. And at the same time, the cities were developing their proposals. And so all those proposals, the county UGAs and the city UGAs came to Planning Commission. I should say the Population and Employment came to Planning Commission last November and December. Ultimately, the commission could not reach a majority vote on that. So then it moved on to county council, and after a number of meetings, and just like planning commission, the cities came and presented the rationale for their proposals. They did the same thing at council. I think that was kind of like January, February. And then in March, the county council passed what was called the non-binding multi-jurisdictional resolution. That's resolution 2025-011. And they accepted the figures put forward by the cities and the counties for the urban growth areas and the rural areas. It was preliminary, so it's not, a final determination, but it's something that, gives the cities and the county some basis for moving forward with, urban growth area planning and, infrastructure and so forth.
Thanks, Brett. So, just so I'm clear, it sounds like planning commission, we discussed it in a couple meetings in November, December 2024, and then the council and the city discussed it January, February, and then the council made a decision in March, and that's the number we have. Is that right?
That's that resolution, yeah.
Okay, sweet, sounds good. Thank you.
Director Personius, since we don't have it in here, would it be appropriate to have the public hearing now?
Sure.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to the public hearing. Eileen would.
Could I ask a question about that? So how that fits into our process? Is it a public hearing and that we will take action based on input from the public hearing, or is it just to get more input?
You can take whatever action you like. Right? I mean, we're looking, well, this is an incremental process, right? So as Matt said, you're not gonna make a final recommendations until the end, till you've seen all the comp plan elements, and certainly land use and housing that will have a lot of the meat to this, but the population and the employment numbers will drive arrive at, right? And so that was the point of the non-binding resolution, was to signal the public as well as the cities and special purpose districts that have to plan for, they need growth targets, even though they're preliminary, they need to know what they're planning for. So that's what they're doing right now. So, so your recommendations are not gonna be final tonight, is what I'm sort of getting at. They don't have to be final tonight, but any questions you guys have, or if you wanna make a recommendation, that's fine. And then we'll just keep rolling along with it. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yeah, I would just anticipate if there are major changes that they might made after the public hearing, it might require another public hearing, that's all.
Oh, yeah, and there will be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there will be at the end, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Eileen, you take over, please.
Yes. As a reminder, this is being recorded and being broadcasted live. You will be given 3 minutes to speak on this topic. Darcy Jones. You may speak.
Hi, this is Darcy Jones with Jones Engineers on behalf of Kitech USA. We support the population growth strategies established in the multi-jurisdictional resolution and really alternative 2 of the draft environmental impact statement, or something close to that alternative. We support a growth strategy wherein each jurisdiction anticipates and plans for more than the statistically most likely or medium population projection. It is not realistic to assume that each city in UGA will accommodate an allocated share of the medium in a perfect statistical manner over the next 20 years. Well, it has been said that the medium projection is the statistically most likely to occur for the county as a whole. However, the same cannot be said for each individual community. Each community will experience changes over the next 20 years. Changes to environmental regulations will occur and may impact some communities more than others. Changes in socio-demographic trends will affect growth patterns in each community. Some will see more population changes than others. Each city and unincorporated UGA should be prepared to accept more than the most likely to occur medium projection in the event that other areas of the county cannot accommodate their share for a variety of reasons, or in the event perhaps that particular community becomes more popular. Alternative 2 represents careful analysis by each community. Significant discussions within each community and at the Growth Coordinating Council have been ongoing for several months. Discussions about how much growth each community can accommodate, where that growth should occur, and where it should not occur over the next 20 years has resulted in the recommendations embodied in Alternative 2. The DEIS establishes that Alternative 2 is the superior option to achieve the best results associated with each of the key issues being analyzed in the EIS. The most significant difference between Alternative 2 and each of the other alternatives is that Alternative 2 anticipates that 13% of countywide population growth would occur in the unincorporated rural areas, whereas with each of the other alternatives, 19% of county population growth would occur in the unincorporated rural areas. Alternative 2 will provide the best outcome for housing. For example, Alternative 2 proposes a reconfiguration of Bellingham's urban growth area to exclude areas which are not suitable for urban levels of development, replacing those areas with other, more efficiently buildable lands. This strategy will increase the potential for a true variety of housing options to complement Bellingham's infill strategies, and providing this variety will have the effect to limit the potential for sprawl. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
All right, are there any questions for the speaker? Commissioner Hanson?
Yes, sir. Are you testifying on chapter 1 or on the draft EIS? Because it seems like Alternative 2 is part of the draft EIS.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, you sure can.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Alternative 2 represents the population projections embodied in the multi-jurisdictional resolution, which is reflective of the city and county's preferred growth strategies that have been under discussion and adopted in that county ordinance Matt mentioned, the multi-jurisdictional resolution. So again, alternative 2 is reflected in the EIS as the strategy to reduce sprawl, by far and away the superior strategy to limit sprawl among all the population projection scenarios we've been looking at over the last, well, 2 years.
So if I can just further clarify. So alternative 2 in the EIS is the same as a multi-jurisdictional resolution, which is the same as the population and employment numbers in chapter 1. So
Thank you, Matt. All right, thank you, Darcy Jones.
There were no other attendees.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Yeah, you have more to give us here.
did you say, I'm sorry, was that me?
Oh, yeah, you have more information for us here.
No, just here, if you have any questions, we try to answer those.
Just a couple of questions.
Commissioner Dunn, go ahead.
Matt, these are not substantial, and so if there are questions we can't really resolve, whatever, that's totally fine. But just starting from the chapter, on page 1-3, at the bottom where it says goal 1A.
Yeah.
We're good. It goes over the goals there. It felt just a little bit jerky between talking about the Whatcom County government and just going into that goal. Maybe we have a sentence there that says, hey, here, the following are the goals that the Whatcom County government, or whatever. I know that every chapter has a goal. It just felt like when I read that, I didn't quite know where those goals came from and you know, what, so just in terms of like more, I guess maybe easier to read, maybe a sentence there about what those goals are from.
Yeah, why don't I bring it up, and if you want to provide some wording, I can just, you know, of course you have to all vote on it, but I can at least okay.
So I'll talk out loud and try and formulate something. So the following goal.
Oh, let me get there.
Okay.
Okay, so and would that be right before the goals?
Yeah, I think if you hit a return and then made a sentence or whatever,
Okay.
New paragraph.
yeah. Something like, you know, the following goals, were developed by or come from, or like where do these goals come from? Who came up with the goals?
I don't know, Red, were you involved with this at one point with these when you were on council?
Could you repeat the question, Matt?
Were you involved in some of these? I have a vague recollection when these were originally developed.
Yeah, I'm, in fact, I have a funny feeling I'm responsible for number 1.
The following goals are from Rudd.
How about the what? We don't.
I can't remember more than that, Matt. I'm sorry. You're much younger than I am.
Hold on just a second. Commissioner Sari, go ahead.
Yeah, as soon as you do that, then I'm gonna say, well, okay, now we gotta have a sentence that addresses the policy, because there's only one goal, and then it's policies.
Well, it could be the goals.
So
Goals and policies?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Maybe are intended to govern, are intended to guide.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Matt, what if you just put that as a precursor to that first sentence in front of ensure, right? So the following
Oh, there you go.
goals and policies are to.
Nice.
Okay, hold on. Are intended to, did you say?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and then just put ensure good government, et cetera?
Yep.
Okay, I gotcha.
Beautiful.
So do we need a motion to make that an official thing?
That would be nice, just to make sure that, you know, majority of the body is on board.
Would you like to make a
Yeah,
motion?
so I'll make a motion that we add that text, the following goal and policies are intended to.
I'll second.
Beat me to
Okay,
it.
we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Seeing we have no comments or discussion on it.
Brown,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question is to, add this, I'll call it a preamble, to,
Yeah, yes,
yeah,
Dunn,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes,
Wasseri,
Yes.
Barton.
Yeah.
Passes.
all right, go ahead.
My next, comment was just on page 17. The population projections.
Okay.
It was about the difference between net migration and natural growth. I just noticed that when you look historically, you use data for natural increase in net migration, but when we project forward, we don't include that same data. I just feel like if we include data when we look backwards, because this is a forward-looking document, we should include that same data looking forward so we can compare it.
I'd have to look to see if we have that. You know, on a countywide basis, we do, and I guess that's let's see, where's that? You're just talking about this chart or
Yeah, so
this
yeah,
chart?
and the OFM published their projections for the future, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're on a countywide basis, right? And
Right.
natural increase is supposed to go negative in Whatcom County in 2035 and later. So everything would be in migration at that point. But yeah, I think we could add that chart in here. Let me just put a note.
really has.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Brown, while he's looking at that, go ahead, Commissioner Brown, thank you.
yeah, I don't want us to skim over that. If we could just go back up to the previous chart. There's a really important issue here, is that you see in 2016, the natural increase in population, which is obviously babies born, is starting to plummet. And at the same time, the net migration inwards is starting to explode. And one of the things that I want us to be cognizant about is that a lot of people talk about trying to stop the growth in the county or to stop people moving in. The problem is we're not stopping people moving in. What we've got is people who tend to be post children with money are moving in and displacing people who are trying to create a family. So I believe that drop off is not that people are choosing not to have children, is that the people of childbearing age are moving out of the county because they're being forced out because of economics. And the other part that I would say to support that is further on when you look at on page 1-12, and you look at the change in the demographics of the population, those in the age category of 0 to 19 have dropped by a quarter, whereas those 65 and over has increased by 3/4. So I just want to make sure we keep that in the forefront of our mind when we start talking about the need for housing and population projections. That what we're doing is we're driving our young people out of the community because it's just not affordable.
Just to follow up on that thread, maybe in a different direction, since we have people past their the age in which they are holding down jobs coming in, those people will not be going to factories or retail or what have you, or even in service, but they will be requiring service providers So I think we need to be looking at our demographics in a different way when we look at things like the need for new industrial areas. Maybe our biggest need will be for commercial and service sectors for our changing demographics.
Or retirement homes.
Well, that's part of the service.
Yeah.
I'll see you there.
Hey, you're nearly there. I intend to age in place.
Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, but just to those two comments, if you don't build anything that has those higher paying jobs, it also encourages people to leave, you know, so.
We need those jobs.
Yeah. And that's valid too, Dominic.
Commissioner Dunn, do you have more for us?
I do, yeah. So moving ahead to page 1-12, titled demographics. And this is just purely about a qualitative choice of words. You use the word culturally diverse, but then you describe people by age. And to me, the phrase culturally diverse refers to somebody's like skin color or their religion or their cultural background or whatever. And then the age is more about like somebody's, it's a different thing. And I think that, you know, I'm not sure how culturally diverse Whatcom County is. I think it's like 75% white or something like that. So that might be something to look at and say, if the point of demographics is to say that we're different by age and they need different kinds of housing, maybe we could find just a little different word there, or a different phrase to use than culturally diverse.
So let's, I do want to get direction from the body as a whole. Maybe we can take one of these at a time. I see OFM has 5-year interval projections on residential, or excuse me, net migration, births and deaths. My only thought is we are very, very busy. We could do a chart. People can also find it online here at OFM. So I guess my first question would be, as a group, is that something that we want to put in there, is going forward a chart similar to this other one on a 5-year basis?
I'll make the motion and we'll see if I get a second and we'll see if people support. I'll make a motion that we put a chart in to reflect the projected future natural increase in net migration.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Discussion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, what are we going to use as the data?
Well, we would use OFM. It's got a 5-year projections. Let's see here. So we've got Whatcom County. It's got historical. Let me just hide this if I can. Oh, didn't allow me to, I haven't downloaded it. So anyway, Whatcom County is there. So like this is between 2040 and 2045. They're projecting that, I think are we this one?
I don't think we can see it.
Oh, you can't see it?
We
Okay.
can see your arrow.
Okay, let me edit, let me download this so I can just, oops. Oh, there we go. Let me download it so I can hide things and it makes it easier to see. Okay, so you cannot, let me,
While he finds it, you said to add a chart that reflects what?
The projected future net migration versus natural growth on numbers provided by OFM.
Thank you.
it's got the historical there, but we would go. So it's in 5-year intervals. So they're projecting over a 5-year period. This is the in-migration. For some reason, they're saying it's going to go down a little bit. Then we'd have to subtract births and deaths to get the natural increase. But yeah, it's doable, certainly.
But if I may, yeah, I like the question, but I think the question needs to be supplemented with something else, which is that if the rate of, where does the rate of net migration compare relative to the construction of new housing? And the reason that's important is if people are moving in to fill new houses, that's one thing. But if people are moving in at a rate greater than we're creating new housing for them, then what they have to do to live here is displace someone who's already living here. And the way they do that is by offering a higher price to buy a property than someone living here can afford to pay for it, which is, and the classic example, of course, is someone who's is maybe retiring, has been in a higher value area like San Francisco or Seattle. They've sold their place, they've got extra money, and they come here and pay an extra $50,000 for a house that some young family's trying to buy, and just squeezes them out of the market. So I don't know how we do it, but I'm pretty sure that's occurring. And when we do our projections, I'd like us to at least try and have a stab at measuring what that is.
Yeah, Dan, why do you think it's useful?
On a process standpoint, it's just purely, we use this data to look at the past. We should mirror that data when we look towards the future. From a data perspective or an analysis perspective, it's interesting to see where people are coming from broadly. Like, is it that people are having 1 million babies each and we're just having like a huge thing, or is it not? And that'll really tell us more about, I think, what Jim and Roe were talking about. Like, when we're looking at this population, are we needing to be creating zoning and land and transportation, whatever, for primarily like an older population or a younger population? Are we gonna need 1 million more schools? Are we gonna need like whatever? And so that is really about trying to project the age band that comes in. And one data point you can do that is by using net migration perspective.
So we would need not just that chart, but we would need a similar one that has it broken out by the age bands.
I'm fine with just one chart, but we can do whatever.
Well, like this, it has both the chart and then it's got the spreadsheet here.
Yeah.
Where it breaks down what those age bands are. If you just see that chart that shows the projection, you won't know what the age bands are in there, right?
Yeah.
You need the chart too.
Right. That data comes
Or the spreadsheet.
from the census, right? So that's something we don't project into the future. But
Yeah, it comes from OFM's projections.
Do they project the age band too?
I don't know. I've never seen a chart, this is like a year ago, it just snapped in my head, where they were projecting net migration versus natural births. I'm assuming it was based off the chart.
we can look at that and see if OFM has anything on that.
Okay.
On the
Well,
age group.
well, let's see if the committee wants to do that first. If we got a motion, we got a second. Do we want to discuss and?
Oh, then just clarify, is motion for the chart or the graph?
It was for the graph, but would you like to amend the motion and add the?
I think that's probably more valuable information.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that.
So I'm not clear on the motion.
So the motion would be to add, the original motion, I think, was to add the chart that had the natural increase and net migration, like the graph that's there, but to do that off of the OFM projected numbers. And then Dominic mentioned that it would be great to have the actual like numbers, the data there as well. So like below the graph, there's a little thing that's the table of 3 OFM population projections, like to have that as well. Is that what you were saying, Dominic?
Yeah, it's I've lost that graph.
1.7.
Yeah, well, on 1.6, it's got that graph, and then I guess, back on 1.12 where it shows actually the shows the age bands there in the chart.
Yeah.
Right.
What my only comment would be, it may be useful information, but some of the stuff is just online and just, it does take time to make graphs and charts and things like that. But yeah, so why don't we take them? We could take them one at a time. So the first would be that kind of a graph just with the information in figure 1, but projected forward.
Yeah, I think the amended motion this time is the graph plus that.
Well, we
chart.
can just do them separate, that's fine.
Do separate, okay. Okay, then we'll just stick with the first motion then, which is just to replicate essentially the graph on, I guess it'll be 1.6. Natural increase in net migration. Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
And that's going into the future to 2040, basically between 2025 and 2045 is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to have the wording down on the motion.
Yes, I have Commissioner Dunn moved to add a chart that reflects the future net migration versus net growth provided by OFM.
Basically, figure 1 for the future. That's what we're saying, right?
Yep.
Okay, I got that.
Okay. Seeing no other hands up discussion, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dunn,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Yes.
Brown, Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Commissioner Masseri?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we have a similar table to table 6 that mirrors that same data of the projection on that chart.
I will second that motion.
Graph.
Figure 6.
Yeah, table 6.
The table 6 that mirrors what that new graph will be with future projections.
Okay, so
That would be the graph we just voted to put in, just for clarification if someone listens to it later on.
Yeah, sorry if I keep calling things same things, graphs and charts.
so you want table 6 going into the future, is that right?
Yeah, sit to match what that graph that you're gonna put in will have.
I've got a quick question here. Would both of you withdraw your motion and your second? Let's word this just a little easier so that anybody that reads it understands what they're looking at. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
So you're gonna amend the motion that was already
amend
passed?
Or withdraw it and then we can wordsmith it.
That one was clear. Maybe just make mine clearer.
I was talking about yours.
Yeah. Nobody, I don't think anyone even said, oh yeah, I guess, oh yeah,
Second.
We got a second.
So you-
but-
What do we have so far for that motion? Like, what's the?
I have Commissioner Mosseri moved to have a similar data to table 6 that mirrors what the future projection graph will be.
Oh, very well done.
That is how I intended to say it.
Okay.
Excellent.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Would it be easier to just convert table 6 into a figure? And then go out to 2045? Is that the same thing you're asking for?
Oh, yeah.
No,
We don't
because
need a table and a graph, do we?
well, that's what we have right now. We've got figure 1 and table 6. Because,
But they're different things. Figure 1 is showing natural increase in net migration
yeah,
versus table 6 is just showing population and age groups.
yeah, and I guess I was just asking for the future projection of what those age groups will be. So when we get to 2045, what's the makeup of
Right.
the?
I'm just saying for consistency, we could take table 6 because that'll have historic 2000, 2010, 2020 census and then whatever OFM projects out.
Those are just extend out that table.
Yeah.
So for 2020, 2040, 20 whatever.
Yeah,
Sure, we can just extend that out, but I do like it in a table versus a graph.
you're a table guy.
Well,
Not a graph guy.
I just think with this much
Okay.
information on it,
Okay.
And I'm gonna say that I'm looking at that up there and realizing when we start adding out farther, that table. is gonna grow.
It gets a little busy.
It might be easier just to do with the motion and just put below it the projection out, so that they're in separate tables but identical style. And I think that's what the motion didn't say where it was going, but I assume it would go underneath this, but I was thinking about it can get really hard to read. And I realize this is a partial page, but, and so it's smaller, but
Yeah. Okay. So add a figure to correspond to table 6, but take it out to 2045.
no, just add like a table 7 that has the projection population and age groups.
it'll fit the, what he asked is, it would be like table 6, but it would be a separate table.
Yeah, it'll be the same as that, kind of like we just added that second graph. Right, it's got,
Well, one thing I guess we could do is,
maybe I'm.
we could just amend figure 1 to carry it from 2022 out to 2045. So there's only one figure, but it has both historic and projected on the same figure. And the projected numbers would just be dash lines. instead of
Maybe
columns.
if I could have some flexibility in this, because it becomes very small.
Yeah.
If you go out too far, if you could just kind of give the concept and I can figure out.
I mean, we understand what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to see the future projections of these things,
Yep.
let us figure out maybe the best way to do that.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what is our current motion right now, Eileen?
To add a similar data table to table 6 that mirrors what the future graph will be, projections would be, that graph up there.
Do we have any more discussion on this,
On this issue?
on this motion?
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none, Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Hanson,
Yes.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
My next comment is on page 1-12. Under demographics. And it would, it would just be to remove the words culturally diverse and just say the demographic makeup of the county's population. I think we're talking about age there, it looks like. The rest of that paragraph is about kids and retired people and single parent families. I don't know, just saw it, taken. So I'll make the motion that we strike the words culturally diverse after the in the paragraph demographics on page 1-12.
And if we can find it.
I'm not hearing a second.
Courtney, tell me I haven't been able to find it yet. Which paragraph on page?
So it's page 1-12.
Oh,
Very first sentence.
okay, under demographics, okay.
Can you see that on the screen? I've got it up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, if we just. Yeah,
Is that a second?
so I'll second that.
Hey, all right.
They're done.
Yes.
Would you answer a question for me, why we should take that out?
Solely because it doesn't relate to the paragraph. The words are just paragraph. Nothing against the word culturally diverse, it's just that paragraph talks about it talks about, residents with children, talking about retired people, those kind of age-based things.
It's totally about demographics, not culture.
Yeah, seasonal residents, so like to me, so like the word culture means more like, yeah, somebody's like their background, their how they do things, their family, their skin color, their race, their whatever, all those things that make up like who we are as people. And this, I feel like this paragraph is just on age. And I would say if we do want to talk about the cultural diversity of Whatcom County, which would also be great, then maybe we add another paragraph in there about the cultural makeup of, that we have, people who are Hispanic, we got people who are from Russia, we got people who are, Jewish and Christian and whatever, all that
We
kind
have
of
the
stuff.
people who used to own this county.
Right, yeah, we got tribes, we got all kinds of stuff, yeah.
Very, very, very good. That was like, you answered the question.
Okay, great. I'll stop that.
Is there any, more discussion on the motion? Commissioner
Yes.
Brown?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no simply because I don't want to spend the bandwidth with the public explaining why we struck the words.
Anyone can read this.
Any other discussion? Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mosseri,
Abstain.
Brown,
No,
Dunn,
Yes,
Hanson,
Yes.
Barton,
No.
Fails.
Commissioner Hanson?
I'm gonna inquire about how we want to conduct the rest of this scrutiny, because I see a major issue around the population and job projections, which is sort of a global, and it's more than just wordsmithing. I have a couple of wordsmithing edits that could be discussed, but I just wonder how we want to spend our energy, at what point we might become fatigued and not, whether we might want to talk about the population and job projections first while we're fresh.
would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we reject the population and job projections as presented in this document in favor of ones that are consistent with the OFM, middle level projections. The middle level, or what's the
OFM medium.
medium level, yeah, and consistent with both the OFM median level projections for population and for job growth, population and job growth, okay? And even if I don't get a second, I want to talk about it because I think it's important.
well, what was your motion?
My motion was to reject the population and job growth projections presented in chapter 1 and replace them with medium growth OFM job and population projections.
I thought those were the numbers.
No, they picked the high.
No.
Alternative 2 is the middle, that's the 303,000.
Just a little point of clarification. So you got a motion, that's great. Do we get a second on the motion?
We have no second. I'm just waiting to
Okay,
sort it out.
so should I make a short presentation on my motion? Is that in order?
I mean, if you don't have a second.
We don't have a.
Oh, I thought you made a second. Oh, okay.
I will second for discussion. Brown seconds to enable discussion.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Hanson, why do you think they should be?
Okay, there's a couple of reasons. One is that the OFM projections, when you go into the past, have proven to be exceedingly accurate. And therefore, the projections into the future are likely also accurate. I believe that the multi-jurisdictional resolution projections were a result of horse trading among the participants rather than science. And as the environmental caucus or environmental council pointed out, if we oversize our infrastructure outgrowth, the burden on the taxpayers will make housing that's constructed less affordable. It'll make the same units of housing more expensive because of a cost to support outsized infrastructure. So it's important that the infrastructure be congruent with the actual population growth and housing construction, and also with job growth. One thing I noticed in this, what's being presented in chapter 1, is they use the high population growth from the OFM, but they use the middle projection for job growth. So basically they're saying, we're gonna have more people coming in than there are jobs to support. So I would like to see a balanced approach where we plan for job growth concurrently with population growth, and not plan for it to be out of balance. And I don't like some of the allocations, like I don't like any population allocation to Columbia Valley, because we don't have the infrastructure to support them. It's basically just wants to turn it into a rural ghetto. And we have a 2-lane highway going back and forth to get there. We don't want, and the funding to make Mount Baker Highway a 4-lane highway to put a lot of people out in Columbia Valley is a joke. No reason to do that. Likewise, I'm not so sure about Birch Bay, because some of the areas in the Birch Bay UGA expansion are projected to be underwater in the sea level rise report that I saw. And I hope, has that been distributed to the rest of you all? Have we all got copies of the sea level projections? I think that we should definitely do that before we get to chapter 2. So in general, I just don't think this is a sound way to go forward. It prejudices our approach to the rest of the chapters in an unfortunate way. Also leaves us open to potential legal challenges to the documents that we approve. Now, 2 cycles ago, the comp plan was held up in court for about 4 or 5 years. And I think that we need to make a document that's bulletproof in terms of challenge at the Department of Commerce. So I think that the middle estimates are more prudent and will meet our needs to a far greater extent than this jury-rigged document that came out of the interlocal agreement.
Commissioner Brown.
I think there's a couple of, first off, Jim, I appreciate you bringing up the question, but I think there's a couple of flaws in the analysis that's come out of this. One is to say that it's putting an undue burden on the taxpayers to build infrastructure that's not needed. Government doesn't build the infrastructure. Developers build the infrastructure. And the developers only build the infrastructure in response to the demand and the effective usability of the land. I think one of the fundamental flaws with all these projections is they're all based on the assumption, pretty much, because I don't see anything adjusting the assumptions, that an acre zone for building houses can have an acre of houses on it, because most of those acres are actually reduced very significantly, partly by wetlands, but significantly by wetlands buffers. And the only way to mitigate for those buffer impacts is to consume more farmland, particularly pasture land, to enhance it, to generate the credits to offset the impacts to the buffers. So if someone builds a subdivision, they're responsible for building the roads. They're responsible for the sewer systems. They're responsible for the water supply. The general county taxpayers are not responsible for that. Ask Darcy for the Kitech thing. The thing that's stopping Kitech is, when I was on the council, I think the number was that the city wanted was $50 million to build water infrastructure, a new tower to extend the sewer line up Meridian Street. The developer was expected to pay for those things, not the general taxpayers.
Yeah, I speak against the motion, on kind of on mostly on procedure grounds. I also disagree with population numbers, I think, but the opposite, I think they should be higher. I feel like I had my chance to say my piece, you know, at the hearings we had here at the planning commission, to talk to, you know, council members about it and to attend the council meetings and and then at the end of the day, you know, the decision makers, the electeds, they decided, they passed their memo. And so to me, it's whether I like it or not, it's settled, they've had their thing, and so I would be willing to change those numbers, whether I felt the numbers are too high or too low.
Any more comments, commissioners? Commissioner Hanson.
Just one more comment is that I appreciate the comments from the other side of the issue, and I still think that we're been maneuvered into a situation where we're being asked to pass something that isn't in the best public interest. And also, Rudd, if all the developments were put in by major developers, and they really did pay for the cost of, saying, the sewer plant expansion and the sewer trunk line expansions, that would be great. But a lot of the developments will be piecemeal and not subject to development contracts would help carry that. But I don't get the feeling I'm getting a lot of support on this, though. As you probably all read this letter from the Whatcom Environmental Council, and I pretty much think they're on the right track, and I think that we may pay for this later if we go on the way we are. And I don't have a great faith in how the product came out of the consultant. I think that we maybe didn't get the best job that we could have gotten out of that. So,
Commissioner Brown.
I just want to make sure I'm bifurcating my comments. I think growth inside the urban areas where there's existing infrastructure, I think the developer may or may not pick up the incremental cost of adding another house onto the sewer line. I would agree with that. But once you get into the urban growth area, and I invite Mr. Pisanius to comment on this. Once we get into the urban growth area, I don't believe government subsidizes that infrastructure at all. I think that's entirely on the developer's checkbook. Would you have a comment to that, Mr. Pisanius?
Well, in general, what are called developer extensions in cities are, yeah, wherever that pipe ends and wherever you need to connect it to get to your new development, the developers pay for that, called through the developer extension.
Yeah.
That's what Kitech is, Rudd was alluding to, has been so expensive because it's a greenfield, right? It's not infill, so there's no pipes there, so it's a lot more expensive to extend those pipes out there. Yeah. And that obviously has an impact on the product that the developer can sell and can market.
If I can also add, when I was on the council, we debated the issue of U Street, the UGA at U Street, and the city of Bellingham opposed it because the developer was going to be asked, they wanted to make sure the developer was asked to not only to extend the line, as Mr. Pisonius is saying, but also to upgrade the entire infrastructure from U Street all the way down, because the sewer lines and so forth were not adequate to carry additional capacity. So I don't know of a circumstance in a UGA where the citizens have picked up the cost of the expansion.
Have any other comments, questions? Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Brown,
No,
Dunn,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Mosseri,
No,
Barton,
No.
Bales.
Number 30.
yeah, Matt, I got a question on 1-10.
Okay, let me go there. Oops.
On the third paragraph there, can you explain what exactly that's saying to me?
Yeah, so this was in the last comp plan, hasn't changed, and it was somewhat similar to 2009, but there was a caveat in there. But cities have expressed a desire to, because you're supposed to size your UGA to accommodate basically 20 years of population and employment growth, no more, no less, basically. I mean, there's a little bit of variance in there, but essentially, you can't make the UGA has to be consistent with the population and employment projections. And there's been an expressed desire, I think, over the years from cities to say, hey, we might want to try to recruit more businesses than we have historically had. So, employment projections based upon history, they might want to change that pattern in the future. Some of the the employment projections were on the higher side of things to give them that flexibility to designate land for, commercial or industrial, so they might be able to recruit or change the pattern, that type of thing. So, and I mentioned Columbia Valley earlier, the projection there would be optimistic, when compared to historical growth. But if you don't have land for, industrial development, that's not going to happen. If you have it, it may or may not happen, but at least there's that opportunity. So.
Yeah, and that made sense when you were making that comment earlier, but why does it say due to the challenge in designating lands for commercial and industrial development? If we need that, why wouldn't we just designate it for that?
Well, I think they're saying that, some of these are on the high side. In fact, let me bring up the memo.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I guess I don't understand. We're saying that we're in the process. I mean, if this whole thing is a planning process and we're looking at the UGAs and what would be in it, but we're saying that we don't have the capacity or the ability to designate it for the lands that we'll need to meet our employment requirements?
Well, sometimes there's different kinds of difficulties. Maybe land gets used for something else and it no longer available for, industrial or commercial. I remember it's probably 15 years ago now. There was an application to change part of Cherry Point to residential, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. The council didn't docket that. But yeah, I mean, land can get developed for other things. Sometimes there's community opinions on things. And so I think
So does it say that by designating there mean we can't actually decide what people put on that land? We're hopeful that the businesses will come and put commercial and industrial development on those lands.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying?
Yeah, but it has to be zoned for that. So
Right.
the zoning, and the UGA uses are driven by these population and employment figures. So if you had a medium or a low, commercial industrial job allocation, then, you wouldn't zone much land for that. If you have a higher or optimistic then you zone more land to accommodate that employment.
Okay,
Um, Commissioner Hanson, can you, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment that, for instance, idea of a lot of job growth in Kendall, it's not really a very attractive place for people who own businesses to want to locate to create jobs. So that would be an example of unrealistic expectations.
And there are certainly challenges, right? Just transportation challenges. The other one example that comes to mind, and you guys we'll be dealing with this when we get to the land use element, this fall. In particularly in the Bellingham UGA is the Alderwood Birchwood neighborhood, right? And there's, where we've got light industrial and heavy industrial right next to residential, and there's definitely conflicts there. And so that's, some of the challenges of even designating those lands, much less following through with specific zoning for what types of industrial uses, heavy, light, you know, that you, and what are the adjacent land uses like, and are you likely to have more or less impacts on those adjacent land uses?
okay.
Commissioner Brown.
Matt, I don't know if there's somewhere else in the comprehensive plan for this, but maybe you could speak to it, but we talk about employment numbers, but do we talk about the land required for employment?
So,
Sorry, you said no?
no, I didn't. I was interrupting you, so sorry. So we have a land capacity analysis. So each jurisdiction, like each city, so let me back up. In the last buildable land cycle, and even before that, we had a land capacity analysis methodology. And this was what Mark mentioned that we'll be bringing in July. Land capacity methodology, and it's been kind of refined over the years. And we have spreadsheets that each city does for their UGA and the county does for Columbia Valley, Birch Bay, and Cherry Point. And basically, those have an input. I mean, we basically look at the land supply in each UGA. We take off the table things that are fully developed, and the rest of the land is categorized as vacant, partially used, which would be like a house where you could have 20 houses or something, and then underutilized, which might be a house, an old house in a commercial zone, for example. And then wetlands are taken out, land for infrastructure is taken out. If there's a fire station plan, that's taken out. There's a market factor for people who just don't want to sell their land. Some people may use their lot next door for, garden or a swing set or something. Some may be keeping it for their children, later on. Some may be holding it for speculation. So there's a market factor that's applied, and that, like a percentage, maybe 25% is also taken off the table. So we do all that, and then the population is translated into housing units, employment translated into square footage, and then there's kind of a big picture analysis with the land left after all those deductions. Is there land available to accommodate that housing, to accommodate that square footage of commercial and industrial? And then if there's a deficit, let's say there's a deficit of housing, then either the densities would have to be increased in the existing urban growth area and or the UGA expanded to accommodate that additional growth. So that does come into play, and that will kind of show up when the cities bring their proposals to Planning Commission, and the county does for Birch Bay and Columbia Valley and so forth. And they'll have that in the report that the land capacity analysis shows there's a deficit or that there's a surplus of land for housing or employment.
Who's the unfortunate soul who's doing the new buildable lands analysis?
So the consultant, again, we had this House Bill 1220, which modified the housing provisions of the GMA. And in the past, land capacity analyses were just looking at, is there enough land for the housing? Could be, if a community had all single family, it didn't matter. Now it matters. And so we have to make sure there's land for, duplex, triplex, fourplex, multifamily, different forms of housing. And so the consultant modified the spreadsheets, and those different income bands are translated into housing types in accordance with commerce guidance. So there may be enough land for the dwelling units, but maybe not enough for the, multifamily or fourplex, that type of thing, which might accommodate more affordable housing. So, and we'll come in July, we'll show you the methodology, and maybe we'll do a little demonstration of one of the spreadsheets to show how that works.
But, so we're using a consultant again, because we used a consultant last time, right?
Yep. I mean, the consultant modified the spreadsheet template, and then the cities and the county populate that. So like with us, our GIS analyst takes all the assessor data, for things like parcel size, and she uses GIS to put in the wetlands and, are there dwellings on the property already, the acreage. And so then that kind of spits out what is the net acreage left and what is the zoning for that net acreage. And so we kind of look at what's the capacity, what's the projected demand for housing, and how do they compare to one another.
Right. So I read the rules for doing this. And one of the rules is you go through the assessor data, you look for any land that is zoned that doesn't have a dwelling, doesn't have improvements greater than $10,000. And you consider that to be vacant, right?
Yeah.
What I don't know is, because when I looked at the data, I looked at a lot of parcels, and it occurred to me that things like mineral rights may be zoned R5, for example.
Mhm.
And as you know, a mineral right is not a parcel of land. It's effectively an easement or a warrant over the top of the land. Tidelands may still have the same underlying zoning, a stormwater pond, a park, a private road. They all inherit the same zoning of the district that they're in. And so one of my questions is, where, and I'd actually like to get the data. I've been thinking about putting a public records request in to get the data to see how much they dug into where the zoning was versus what the actual use was. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have, in fact, if you want me to, I could bring up a spreadsheet, but basically we have each assessor's parcel number that's in the spreadsheet that's either vacant, partially used, or underutilized. And it has the zoning for each parcel, and it has like the number of dwelling units for each parcel. Is there a dwelling unit on there already or not? I think a lot of the things you mentioned, like wetlands or tidelands, are taken out. Well, we did not have any deduction for mineral rights. We haven't used that in the past.
Right.
Use that in the future.
So here's my point, Matt, is if you just take out every parcel in the assessor's parcel layer that is in the R5, R10 zone, so theoretically it's buildable, but it's actually a mineral right. That is 1,500 vacant parcels that cannot be built on because they don't actually exist as a parcel. If you then take out stormwater ponds, private roads, that also reduces it further. On the agricultural area, there's a lot of vacant agricultural parcels. And if you look closely, it's because there's been a homestead subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
So the development right has been taken off the agricultural parcel, but the agricultural parcel still shows as being vacant for development. So
yeah.
There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of underlying errors in the way the consultant did it last time. And I think they're material. I think they really materially overstate the amount of undeveloped land in the county. The other thing that I consider, the other thing that I consider.
Hey, Red, I think like that's maybe more of a conversation for the land use, like it's a great conversation, love it. But that might be more for the land use chapter.
Yeah, fair enough, but when Matt is talking about this coming up in July, I want to make sure that if the consultant is doing it again, that they actually use a methodology that is accurate, because I don't think the last one was accurate.
So do we have more comments on this chapter? Motion?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Go ahead.
I might have more too, I don't know.
I've got just one more.
Why'd you go ahead?
Okay, just a tiny one.
Yeah.
Matt, on page 1-14. There's like the third paragraph down, it says, starts with a prominent characteristic of Whatcom County housing.
Yeah,
High number of vacation order. I would be curious as to what that number is. Give a percentage, about 50% of the vacant units.
Yeah.
And could you just throw in there like, says, Smith County in 2020, approximately 50% of the vacant units were actually occupied. Could you put a number in there?
okay.
Like whatever that is.
Okay, so I'll have to track that down, but yeah. And that's no objection to that. Anybody else, I assume?
Oh, we're good with that.
No, more info, good. Yeah, we don't need a motion, I hope.
No, I think everybody's agreed that
Okay.
we want.
Okay, got it.
Got a couple more?
Yeah, I have a couple. And these are in, I guess, introductory section 1-1, number 6, property rights. I'd like to add, in accordance with when they talk about property rights, in accordance with the Fifth Amendment to the US Constitution, and et cetera, how property rights, the verbiage on how property rights are protected, because I think it's important that we make these distinctions, that these aren't some policies we're making up. These are core bedrock First Amendment rights. And I think that for us to recognize the US Constitution in our documents is a good thing. We need to and help promote respect for it and knowledge of it.
Can you put that in the motion form? You don't need all that. But
Yeah,
what you-
and it's actually, you have it in an email that came out. And it says section 1-1, number 6, property rights, add at the beginning of the clause, in accordance with the Fifth Amendment to the US Constitution.
So that's your motion?
Yeah.
You're moving, okay.
Oh,
Do we have a
can I-
second?
Can I just, I'll actually go ahead, I had a comment to make then.
Okay, are you gonna take care of that, Matt?
What's that?
No, there's a motion. I guess we're waiting for a second.
We're waiting for a second, but Matt said he was gonna, and I couldn't hear what you said you were gonna do.
Oh, I was just gonna mention, these are verbatim from the GMA, so they're direct quote. So if you want to put that in there, we're gonna have to do something up here because it's no longer gonna be a direct quote from the GMA.
Well, I'm consistent with.
Commissioner Hanson, go
But
ahead.
just, I would say consistent with doesn't mean verbatim quotes. And the GMA wasn't written on golden tablets, and I think could be subject to improvement. And if we could make a small improvement in our county to this point, it would be a good thing.
Motion, do we have a second? Is there a place up above that could be put in?
Are you making a motion?
No, I'm not. I'm just, Matt was looking it over and telling, you know, we have a motion, but no second.
Right.
But he was talking about if you put it in on, anywhere in that gray area that we have to change the paragraphs above to, because those are verbatim from GMA goal.
Yeah, it just sounds like we had a motion, nobody seconded it,
No
so.
second.
And
Go for it.
then we have no second?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and continue.
Okay, one other one is section 1-2. Is that right? Yeah. 1-2, number 9. After wildlife habitat and end corridors. Wildlife corridors are one of the requirements of the GMA. And when we're talking about wildlife, I think it'd be important to also talk about the corridors that facilitate their movement. And I think it's just an oversight not to have and corridors in there because this is a GMA requirement. And it's down the road, it's important because when we're talking about UGAs, we have this habit of like Bellingham and Ferndale running their UGAs into each other, and there may not be a wildlife corridor where really there should be one. So that's why I thought it would be good to add and corridors after wildlife habitat.
Matt, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so that would be the same issue with regard to, this is also a direct quote from the GMA. So I think corridors are mentioned elsewhere, but just not in this, in the goals, GMA goals section.
Mr. Chair, yeah, we do address wildlife corridors, I believe, in the chapter 10, the natural and the environment chapter. And I think we address them also in the land use chapter 2, Matt, right? I think.
I believe so.
There are other places in the comp plan where we can address the issue without specifically, you know, yeah, we're just quoting pure GMA goals.
And I do, before I came on the planning commission, when the county made some of the presentations, they talked about wildlife corridors, and we're thinking Birch Bay. So as long as he's saying that's in there, that's great for me.
Well, I don't hear a second, so I don't think that we need to further discuss this.
Any further motions?
I guess I would make a motion that we, approve this chapter, if that's appropriate, or just say we're good. Like, do you, Mark, is that useful to you? For us to say, we made some motions on it, we reviewed it, we'd like to send it off to county council with our blessing?
Matt, let's ask this. Matt, what do you need from us tonight?
Yeah, I think it'd be good, you know, and this would be for all chapters, just that you give preliminary approval of this, realizing that, you know, you could change things at the end when you have your public hearing on the whole thing. I think that preliminary approval language would be good. It's signal that, you know, we're moving forward with this, could change it, and then we can let the county council know that.
And that's with the caveat of the motions you approved.
Yeah.
To amend tonight.
So anything we do, if we say, okay, we're good, we approve it, we will still do a final hearing where they're all
Yes.
in there and.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
I guess I want to make this comment because it's going to apply to all the other chapters. But by the time we get to a public hearing on the final document, history tells us we're not going to change much. So if we want to make any changes, we should be making them in the work sessions and in the preliminary approvals.
Yeah, do you have any more motions you'd like to make? Okay, all right.
No, I don't have any more motions to get shut down.
Always happy to listen to it. So I'm gonna make the motion, that we are preliminarily approving this with the motions that we approved tonight.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And then I'll let Eileen record that.
Okay. Commissioner Dunn moved to preliminarily approve the proposed chapter 1 with the suggested amendments from the commission.
And we have a second. And do we have discussion?
Brown second.
You know, what, was that Commissioner Brown?
Brown seconds.
Oh, Mosseri seconded.
Okay, that's fine.
You're too late.
Around Thursday.
Just trying to keep things moving.
All right. Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mosseri,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Hanson,
No,
Barton.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Passes.
Or it passes, because it's not code, right?
yeah, it passes.
Passes.
Just, if I may,
Commissioner Brown.
I'm a little nervous that as we've only got 5 out of the 9 here, that if we only get 4 votes, whether that actually is something we can forward. And I don't know the exact rules for the planning commission. Maybe we could just get some opinion in the next 2 weeks as to what.
So in the bylaws, because it is not amending code, it's not anything with the code, it is the majority of those present. So long as there is a quorum for this public hearing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the bylaws are accurate on the law, is my point.
And Commissioner Brown, and I'm not saying I'm the last word on it, but my understanding is what we did is we approved it for Matt to carry along into the major document that in the future will be reviewed.
Yeah, and I will clarify, we weren't intending to send this on to back to the council at this point. I could give them a heads up that you made preliminary approval with some recommended changes, but you're still gonna vote on this all over again at the end of the process when you're voting on the whole component. That's when your final recommendation.
With the word preliminarily approval, it is not like a set in stone thing. So it just needs the simple majority of those present.
Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against this. I'm just asking if we could get the planning commission's legal counsel just to confirm. Because this is outside my comfort zone in terms of the way things are done. Having said that, it may be perfectly legal. I just don't know.
Your hand is up.
Yeah. So, I just want to clarify, we would intend to take this preliminary planning commission version to council, because Mark mentioned earlier, we're going to give them a heads up on the chapter and what you're preliminarily talking about, but we're not going to go for them to, you got to take a final vote on this or anything like that. So until later, till after the planning commission, makes a formal recommendation on the whole comp plan. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and the other thing, what this does is you're telling staff that we're good with this, we can move on to the next chapter, right? Knowing that we're gonna go through this sequentially and we're all gonna come back to it cumulatively at the end.
What if we have a similar situation in the final vote though?
You're talking about a 4-1 vote?
Yeah, 4-1 vote when 5 is the quorum because 4 people are missing.
Well, we'll ask the legal counsel, we'll give them that scenario.
Yeah, and that's all I'm asking for, Marcus. I just want to know what our boundaries are to know what
Eileen, would you make a note of that too?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? Any other business? Questions, comments? Meeting is adjourned.
I have one question for Matt. Matt, who is doing the updated buildable lands?
Who's doing the update to it?
Who's the staff member responsible for doing the update to the buildable lands?
So that's a collaborative effort with the city. So we have a consultant. And so we asked the consultant, to update the methodology to include the new, House Bill 1220 provisions on the, middle housing and all that. The City County Planner Group then recommended approval of that document, the methodology. And so that'll come to you for a public hearing on, I think it's July 24th. And then we'll take it to council, and it'll actually be an administratively approved document by Mark at the end of the day.
Right, but who's interfacing with the consultant?
So we kind of all are. All the city planners, I'm doing the 3 for the county, the spreadsheets, and then all the city planners are doing their UGAs.
Because I want to send you a question offline. I don't just take the time up now. So
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Real quick.
Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, okay, quick job.